Hello, I'm Barry Halverson with the Lake Lawrence Lake Management District, and we're going to be shooting a video today of the Seattle Outboard Racing Association races here at Lake Lawrence, at the Lake Lawrence Community Club. As you can see, it's pretty much the entire area is filled up. The Seattle Inboard and Outboard Racing Association started racing on Lake Lawrence in the 1950s. The outboards were racing here before the inboards. They have raced every year since, except for 2001. Races are run on various course lengths from 3/4 mile to 1 2/3 mile. Recognized by the American Powerboat Association, almost every class in both the inboard and outboards has set records on Lake Lawrence. Lake Lawrence is what they call one of those just right lakes. It's big enough for the course, sheltered from the wind, not very deep, and disperses wave action quickly. Most racers know the reputation of the lake as having prime racing conditions to set records and come from all across the country to race on Lake Lawrence. Some class records are broken every year. This is the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife public boat launch at the end of Pleasant Beach Drive. Got a fisherman out there in his boat. We'll go down and talk to the county sheriff in a minute and find out what the rules are for boating and fishing on the lake during the races. So we're down here at the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife boat ramp, and we're here with the county sheriff's department, the boat enforcement section, who has jurisdiction over our lake and is here to monitor and make sure that people don't violate the rules that are imposed when the hydros are racing. This is John. He was out here yesterday.
Yep.
And could you tell us what the rules are, John?
Yep. So you're allowed to launch on the lake. There's a few things that you have to make sure is that no wake at all. So these boats are really sensitive. So when you launch on the lake, you have to keep it at a no wake. And then there's these white and yellow buoys. You have to stay outside of those, like give them 50 feet. But you're more than welcome to come down and get on the water and fish and watch the races. But you can't interfere with the race at all.
As you heard from our county sheriff, boat patrol, there's just limited restrictions on the use of the lake. So you can put your boat in and you can take your boat out. You can go around the perimeter of the lake as long as you're moving slow without causing a wake. That includes kayaks and canoes and paddleboard. We're down here on the far east side of the Lake Lawrence Community Club shoreline with Russ. Russ is the one responsible for laying this course out.
So many years ago, back in 1976, I was asked to do the survey because that's my profession. I was asked to do the survey, lay out all these buoys. Today we do it with a single unit and a distance meter, and we calculate everything from a single unit using a known back sight to orient the whole course. This particular course is today is a 1 mile. So there's 3 acceptable courses: a mile 1.25 and a 1 2/3 for the inboards. Carol has been with me this whole time, and I defy anybody to have a surveyor to do this thing for as many years as we've been doing it. Still have the same pair doing these things. But I did them in Oregon, California, Washington, and I've set some other courses up around the country that I don't attend, but I calculate them for them. And now it's not only just for records, but it's also a safety thing. By making the courses in a certain pattern, it makes it better for the boat racers so that they don't have to do some oddball turning. And that's how come I make these courses. They're fairly wide, they have a big sweeping turn in them, and the boat racers, they don't have accidents. I mean, not that they don't, but for the most part, they have way fewer than some of the courses that are long and narrow and very sharp. But I have to certify that the course is actually as long as we say that it is. If it's 1 mile, I have to certify that it is actually 5,280 or more feet.
You have a monument here on the end of the Lake Lawrence Community Park with your surveying device,
Yes.
and it stays here. Why does it stay here after you've set the course?
Well, if a buoy is destroyed by somebody wandering too close to the buoy and cuts it off, well, then it needs to be reset.
So once a record is set, you have to revalidate the course.
Yeah, and I turn all the angles to all the buoys, make sure that they haven't moved, and they're right where I set them, and that's why I have down there. I not only have the original angles and distances, but I have them as built the course after they're set. In fact, I can show you the chart, but in a little peak, I use that as one of the sites. Over here is another house, as you can see, is an A-frame over here.
Right.
I use the peak on that, and I check, make sure that my instrument and my settings are proper to go out and set this. Carol will then turn the angles, and then this instrument up here measures the distance out to it, and it does it every 8/10 of a second. I make my surveyor's statement on the course.
Mm-hmm.
I say what my notes are going to be and what I'm going to do and how I established this thing, how everything was done.
Yeah.
And that I send into American Powerboat, and American Powerboat stores this thing, and when I go and do it, I stamp it. That's my stamp on there.
How many records have been set on Lake Lawrence compared to other lakes?
Hundreds of records. I don't have the official number, but somebody counted them up and said there was something like 600 records set on this lake. That's substantial when probably the nearest one to it is maybe 200 or so.
So out of the Lake Lawrence is one lake that they've been racing on since the 1950s. Compared to other lakes in the country, would you say this is one of the better lakes to race on?
Absolutely. Also, we do have great racing water here in the Northwest. And that is one of the reasons why you will see people come from California. They'll come from Florida. They'll come from Michigan. They'll come from everywhere to come to race here because of this water and these courses.
Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Next flight, kicker 2, turn 2. That's what I need, a kicker boat and a turn judge.
The sign-in table.
Anybody that comes down into the boat race area has to sign a waiver of liability,
Yes,
and they get an armband,
yes, and if they have children, they have to do
a release.
special release of their child.
Visitors coming down just to watch the races, there's no charge.
Correct.
Okay, we're down here with the emergency medical personnel. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is John. I'm an EMT with Bald Hills Fire Department, and I'm out here volunteering today to make sure that we got a safe event.
Hi, I'm David with Southeast Thurston Fire Authority. I'm also an EMT out here helping out.
And what's your name?
Missy,
Missy, it was nice to meet you.
nice to meet you. I've been doing this for like 31 years.
So you're a professional.
I'm a professional scorer, yes I am. 40
140
entries.
entries.
Yeah,
Okay.
that doesn't say people, but yeah, 140 entries. So
Who comes the farthest for this race?
I'm gonna say it's our California guys.
Yeah.
A couple of them were just out there.
Okay.
Yeah, so they come a long ways for the chance to set a record.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
Is this a good place to set records?
it's a great place to set records. It's
This is referred to as the pit area. This is where everybody comes to launch their boats. They pull them in and out of the water between races. Make room for the next race, next heats. That's also when they fuel the motors. They take them out of the water, fuel them out of the water.
Speed is 51.135. 5, 1.
So that's Jay Kelly in 28R. He was the winner of the Seafair Unlimited Hydros. He's here at Lake Lawrence racing the outboards. That's the start line for the race. You see they're coming up to it.
Heiser is racing.
It's like another record.
Doug
the
Martin
42R,
is running
Michael-
4R.
J. Michael Kelly's
and
boat.
Preston Wright is in the 819R.
I'm here at the inspection point with Alan.
Alan Thorson.
Alan Thorson. He's our chief inspector for this race.
Yep.
And can you tell us a little bit about what happens when a record is set?
Okay, so we have 4 different categories racing here, and so some of them have very restricted rules, technical rules, and then there's the modified, that's the stock category, and then you got the modified category where you can do some engine modifications.
Okay.
And then we have the pro category where you can do whatever you want to the motor as long as it meets the class displacement. So with the stock class, the drivers, the boats have to meet a minimum weight. So the first thing we do is we bring them in, we make sure that on the scale that they are heavier than the minimum weight.
So they're putting it on the scale to weigh it.
As soon as you got it spun around, Kyle, we're ready.
Driver's got to get in it.
Okay, Kyle, you good?
You saw that?
Okay, here you go. Feedstock Hydro, 5, 4.
Stock and mod have to meet a minimum on the fuel meter. So we have to make sure that they're fueled. They haven't added any additives or anything to it. And so we have a little meter here that measures the electrical conductivity of the fuel.
I was checking fuel. There's some safety rules on the propeller.
Yes, so you can't have the prop height too high. Otherwise, it takes too much of the gear case out of the water and can make the boat handle weird. And so we have these height checkers, and so the center of the prop shaft has to meet the max height.
Okay.
And so,
it can be lower, it just can't be higher.
Exactly. Yeah. So once they meet that, we seal the motor up.
How do you do that?
It's real high tech.
High tech.
It's fingernail polish.
Okay.
So we will paint the nuts, and that way at the end of the weekend when they want to tear that motor down, because if they set the record on Saturday, they're probably going to want to run that motor on Sunday. You know, can possibly get changed. You know, these are the carburetors. So I painted the nuts on those, and if they were cracked, I paint the flywheel because I have to pull the flywheel out of that. There's a minimum weight that has to match. The gear case and the propeller. This is where all the magic is. So we will tear the motor all the way down to the crankshaft.
After they finish the races for the weekend, then they bring their motors up to the cook shack, which is the covered pavilion up here, and they tear the motor apart in front of you, and you basically you go through the engine, make sure it's all right.
Yes.
So
then what I do is I'll finish my inspection report and say, yes, they passed inspection. It will go to the head score, and then she takes all the results, you know.
Is that Missy?
Missy.
Okay.
And so then she'll submit all of the race packet to our American Powerboat Association. When you come to Circle Race Records, Lawrence Lake is the place.
Okay.
People come from all over the United States to come here because
the water quality and conditions.
Water quality, the size of the lake, it fits all our different competition course
requirements,
and it's you know.
So how many?
We say the fastest between Devil's Lake and Oregon, where we do our straightaway records,
right,
and here we got the fastest bodies of water in the United States.
Okay. Does it ever get boring setting records?
No.
No.
No, it's fun. It doesn't. I mean, I don't get a lot of them. It takes a lot of work.
It does.
And then sometimes, I don't know. Today's been one of those days. The weather's a lot better today too.
So how many does this make this weekend?
We've set a total of 5.
You must be the proud mom and wife.
I am.
Ever since Seafair, it's been uphill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been doing great.
In case I didn't say it, I've been talking to J. Michael Kelly, who won the Unlimiteds up at Seafair this year, and has taken several records here at Lake Lawrence with the Seattle Racing Association, Outboard Racing Association. So congratulations.
Thank you.
My name's Lee Sutter.
Lee Sutter. Oh,
Yeah.
it's Sutter Gold Racing. Okay.
Yeah.
And you raced in the first race in 19...
I would say 55 or 56 or 57.
Here at
something
Lake
like that.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So great. Always been wonderful.
How old were you then, sir?
16.
Okay.
I'm 81 now.
Like Lee Sutter, you know, we all grew up knowing his name and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
he came back in this sport, and you know, it's like we're lucky to get him back because we get to drive a lot of their stuff, and it's fun.
We come from all over the country to race on Lawrence Lake. Probably 3rd or 4th generation racers here today.
I'm doing good. Well, it's about 6 o'clock on Sunday. The races are over, and now the hard work of tearing down and putting everything away starts. We're going to stay and watch how they inspect the motor after a record was made on that boat with that motor. And then we're going to talk to the race director, Dwight, and get a summary of what happened this weekend. So as you can see, all the boats that set records this weekend
are bringing their boats and motors in so that they can get inspected by Alan and David, so they can certify that the motors and the boats met the specifications to qualify for the records that these boats set this weekend. And I'm sitting by the referee for the course, who has to certify this whole thing. And what's your name, ma'am?
Cheryl.
Cheryl, nice to meet you. Could you explain to our viewers what you do, what your part is in this?
My part is to ensure that the race is being run per the American Powerboat Association rule book.
Okay.
So it's the enforcement of the rules as they're written in this.
I know you were out on a barge, a pontoon boat, for the last 2 days.
2 days, yep.
So you're the official timer too?
No, actually, we have a whole group of people that are out there with me. We have 2 people that score the laps. We have 2 people that run timers, which is how we get our speeds. So we have somebody that runs flags, and every once in a while we'll have an extra person who runs an iPad video so we can make sure all the boats are legal when they cross the start-finish line.
So I need the information on your caterer person. So if you get me that, plus Burks.
Inspecting these engines is not a simple process. The races have been over for over 2 hours, and they're just in the middle of inspecting these 6 engines that set records today. The process will go on for at least a couple more hours before they're finished. Well, it's 9:45 and they're still at it. We're here with Dwight, the race director for the Seattle Outboard Race Association. Dwight, what do you do as the race director?
What I do is I get the permission and that to use the property, and so the Lawrence Lake Community Club here, nice enough they rent us the property, and then I fill out the forms for Thurston County to get the water, basically, so for the 3 days that we're using it for boat racing.
Is it a permit process?
Yeah.
How much is the fee for that?
$500.
Okay. And that doesn't include the sheriff department and the EMT?
No. The sheriff will be sending me a bill. The Thurston County Fire Department there have been our rescue, our ambulance people that worked out great.
Other than basically getting everything organized paper-wise, what about running the...
Well, then there's Seattle Outboard has equipment that needs to come down to the race site. A trailer with all the John boats, we call it John boat trailer, and that's for turn judges to sit in, and kicker boats, which if a boat guy's motor stops, you know, to get him towed in. This year we had one of the gentlemen on the lake loan their pontoon boat, and Jay Nelson, and it was just fantastic. The scorer gals just loved it. So
I'm glad it worked out for you. I also noticed that you have different age groups, it seems like. I mean, you started out on Saturday with really young kids. Is that pretty standard that you have juniors or?
Oh yeah. You can start racing at 9 years old, and so and we usually start with that. Their motors are quiet, and so this race, because we like to try to get an early start, we'll run a class with a quieter motor, and so that's usually the J class, and that's the kids. And
I noticed with the juniors, or the J class as you call it, that they had 15 horsepower motors on their boats, but they didn't seem to go that fast. Do they have some type of
there's a restrictor, so just behind the carburetor, that down for the junior class, and then if they want to run and use that same motor in a class where you need to be a little older, then they take the restrictor out, and now they go faster.
So what is the fastest speed that you usually run on this lake?
Down the chutes, I mean, down the straightaways, depending upon the course. This was a mile course. There should have been some boats hitting over 100 miles an hour.
Well, Dwight, it's been a pleasure seeing what you do this last couple days.
Well, Barry,
And,
I'm glad that you came and are going to tell them. This is kind of what we do. Seattle Outboard's been around for over 75 years. This race has been there for, I believe Tacoma Speedboat started it in 55. And yeah, we're a club of over 75 years old.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of it is having fun, and a lot of it for some of us is to keep the tradition going. It's a
It seems to be a family event.
oh my goodness, yes.
What I didn't know when I started researching the hydro races at Lake Lawrence was that we have many of our local residents on Lake Lawrence that have been involved in the Outboard Racing Association for 75 years. Some of those were Skip Meredith, who lives in the LLCC, HOA, Tom Fisher, Chris Manning, and we've had a lot of others. As we wrapped up the Seattle Outboard Racing Association hydro races, I just wanted to make a few comments after showing you what all goes into that type of race, how it's conducted. What I learned is that this is a very family-oriented, multi-generational event. The families support them. It's a very expensive sport. There are no cash prizes or trophies awarded at these events. The people are very respectful, clean, and courteous. They maintain control over their areas. They're very well organized. They're all volunteers. And as we all know, being in a lake management district and HOAs, volunteers are important to any organization. You have to have a lot of them. They have to be dedicated, and they spend a whole lot of time doing it for no pay, just the reward of being there and supporting their families and communities. I went back on Tuesday after all the cleanup was done. I talked to Tammy DeButz from the HOA. I walked over the area myself. I couldn't find a stick of trash. Everything was picked up and cleaned. You couldn't have even tell that they had been there. And if you saw from my photographs that I took, the whole area was packed. So these people take care of the area. They respect the area. They respect the park. They respect our community. And I was just amazed at how professional these volunteers were and how dedicated they are to making this event a first-class event that showcases Lake Lawrence as if not the best, one of the best lakes in the United States to race on, as you heard. So my hat's off to the racers and the families this last weekend that used our lake for their hydro races.